Now, despite what our last haul video might have insinuated, we are in fact Mexican. And we don't advocate white power.
Yeah.
We think all people are equal. All people are awesome. No, that's a lie. There's a lot of fucking assholes. Let me put it this way. We don't discriminate. But if you're an asshole, you're a fucking asshole. I don't care what stripe of color on the rainbow you are. Unless you're purple, in which case it's pretty fucking awesome. But anyway, it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about us being brown, which is not on the rainbow, by the way. The fuck is up with that?
Yeah, racist.
We're talking about Mexico today. Hit that music!
Movies, music, Storytime, all kinds of shit for you. Everything goes if it's happening now from
So this rainbow problem really got to get fixed, man. I don't know why there's no brown in it. Oh, wait, because it will look like a big streak of turd across the sky. What are you trying to say, rainbow? What are you trying to say, nature, that Mexicans suck? Anyway, Mexico does kind of suck, I'll tell you that. And that's coming from a Mexican, so that says something. It's a beautiful nation in certain parts.
Some of it.
You know, but...
like 3% of it's pretty nice.
You know, people get mad about stereotypes in movies. But sometimes stereotypes are there for a reason. And I know that's a controversial statement to make, but there's certain elements in society that reflect the stereotype, right? And that's true of Mexico. You know, if you go there and you eat some fucking food, you're probably going to get diarrhea. If you drink the water, you're definitely going to get some serious-ass dysentery, Oregon Trail style.
Yeah. Most of it smells like ass.
Yeah, a lot of it smells like ass. There's some really... poor and decrepit areas, you know. There's some violence, of course. It's world-renowned in its violence.
You could get your head chopped off if you go to the wrong place.
But it's not all like that. You know, there's some great spots in Mexico, and there's some great people in Mexico. And case in point, when I was a kid, every year, not every year, but for like about 5 years straight, I used to go during the summers with my grandmother to visit her relatives in Mexico, which was like, you know, about central Mexico area ways. And it was awesome, man. You know, I really loved going there during the summers. And you know me, I'm not a go out type. I might as well be a fucking troll, a cave troll.
Yeah.
You know, loincloth, stanky, the whole works.
Chasing Frodo around.
Chasing Frodo, yeah, it's my thing. But, you know, yeah, man, I really used to love to go on these trips. And I kind of bemoaned when we stopped going. And the reason we stopped going is because her brother died, and why would we go if there was nobody to visit?
Could visit the corpse?
Could visit the corpse, but that would be a waste of money. But or we could visit his wife, which was, as you know, because you experienced her, shitty. Ramona, I'm talking about.
Oh, my Soto?
Yeah, my soda lady. So that's a story you can tell later. But anyway, we used to go to Mexico, man, and have a blast. But there was some interesting shit that I encountered down there. I remember the first time we went, and mind you, I'm a big guy, you know. But, and, you know, for a kid, also, I was kind of big. But, you know, I was still a kid. You know, I didn't weigh over 200 pounds as a kid. So, especially at that age. So, it was me and my grandma, who was a slip of an old lady. We got in this cab to go to her brother's home, right, where we were staying. And the cab's the tiniest fucking thing I've ever seen, you know. And considering this was the time before compact cars of that size... I'm shocked this thing existed outside of a fucking tray of microorganisms. It was that fucking small. So this little fucking cab is going up a hill, right? And the hill's not even that steep, dude. And up the hill, it's like struggling to move. It's me, my grandmother, and the cabbie. And it's struggling to move up a tiny-ass hill. And the cabbie goes, you guys need to get out and push the cab.
Oh, man.
So we do that. So we paid for the fucking ride too.
Shit.
And you know, once we paid and we got in there and she told her brother, hey, this is what happened. He called the camp. He was like a kind of like a dick swinger over there. You know, he had cash, and he called the cab company and got a refund because what the fuck, man?
Oh shit.
We pushed that. We didn't know to push it up the hill. We had to catch up to it once it got speed down the hill. Oh, and by the way, once we caught up to it and get in. The cab driver goes, I should just say the cabbie. The cabbie says, it's a good thing you got in fast. This is a bad part of town.
All right.
Gee, thanks, asshole. Why are you driving through the bad part of town? There's like 10,000 streets.
Your car has the draw strength of a gnat.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure a gnat could pull more than this shit. Anyway, cabbie sucked, but we took another cab ride into this place. When you go to Mexico, people just refer to things as the whatever, you know? Let's go to the shop, and there might be a million shops, but you just inherently know, oh, that one, that's the shop.
The one that doesn't smell like shit.
Yeah.
That's the one you want
No,
to
it
go
smelled
to.
like shit.
The
No,
one that smells the least like shit.
No, it was the one that smelled most like shit,
Oh,
actually.
right.
It's pretty good. Anyway, the only places that don't smell like shit over there are the bakeries. They smell fantastic, by the way.
But it's
anyway.
just because the bread's covering up the feast stench.
The bread is just cooked feces with powdered sugar
It
on it.
really is.
Pretty good. But no, we got in the cab and went down to this place, just generally referred to as the Valley. And it was like a time travel machine, man. Some Back to the Future shit, you know. Steven Spielberg was producing this bitch. But
It's
we
the least
drove.
interesting Back to the Future movie.
Yeah. We just go back to old school Mexico. Yeah. No, but we went in there, man. It was seriously like you saw like field workers, you know, in the traditional clothing of field workers. You know, the white clothes with the red sash, the big ass hats, with machetes and shit for no good reason. Like, you're not even fucking chopping anything down with machetes. Why do you have a machete? Answer, just in case when you go drinking afterwards, some guy comes up to you and tries to,
You can go into a machete fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even joking. That's what it was, man. And it was, they call them campesinos over there. They're very, very, you know, rural folk. And it was weird, man. I guess an equivalent here in America would be like going into Amish country, only with less technology. And the town...
More stink.
No, it didn't stink. That was a weird
right.
part. The more civilized, quote unquote, the more urban areas, yeah, the more stinky they were. The less urban areas, the more rural they got, it just smelled good. But anyway, we went to visit another one of my grandmother's brothers. She had 24 brothers, by the way.
Yeah.
Normal. No, I'm sorry, 28 brothers.
Normal.
She was she was the first of 28 brothers and sisters.
If you have any less than 20 siblings,
yeah, you're not doing it right. You're not a Mexican. Yeah. But yeah, we went to go visit one of our youngest brothers, and his name was simply, this wasn't his real name, it was just his nickname, but they called him El Ho, which I don't even know what the fuck, because that's not even a word in Spanish. Yeah. So if you were just to directly, phonetically translate it according to how it's spelled, he'd be the Ho, I guess. Anyway, the Ho was this old school, you know, campesino guy, and he didn't carry a machete. He carried like a long knife, and it was rusted. I'm talking like dirty rust. And he's the one I asked, why is everybody carrying the machetes around? And he's the one that told me that, you know. I mean, they use them in the field if they have to, but really it's because, you know, if some shit comes up, it's like a fucking dual act thing going on there. But anyway, he tells me that his is especially rusty because he doesn't want anybody coming back for him. So basically, this is a death fucking warrant he's carrying around in his little sash. So he was a pretty cool guy. Yeah. He was actually pretty cool. But I did notice one thing, and if you go to Mexico, you'll notice this too. Places of business or schools, they have cartoons painted all over them.
Yeah, it's weird.
Donald Duck, Mickey, Porky Pig, Bugs. They're all mixed together. They don't give a shit about copyrights.
Yeah, you know, they say the Russos said with Infinity War it was the most ambitious crossover of all time. They ain't got shit on Mexican walls.
Mexico been doing that shit. They got the animated Chavo punching Bugs Bunny while Bugs Bunny moons Daffy Duck and Donald together. Yeah. Who are 69ing while Porky masturbates on the walls. And it's everywhere. And then this rustic ass old school rural town, the fucking school had like Porky Pig and Minnie Mouse and shit. And I was like, yeah, this is a town I'm in. Anyway, Mexico's pretty cool. You got any stories? You've told a previous story with Mexico.
I did?
And yeah, with the doctor that tried to get you and mom to shower together.
That was a thing.
Yeah, so we went, long story short, if you can't find that video, which I don't even know what video it was
I don't either.
He went to a doctor, which a lot of people here on the border, you know.
Yeah, they used to do that.
From Texas all the way to California, they go over the border.
Before it got really violent over there, it was pretty common.
Yeah, they go over the border because it's cheaper to go there for doctors and dentists and shit.
Which doesn't make sense, by the way, because I had insurance. I didn't need to go.
It's still cheaper.
But everything was paid for.
You still got to pay insurance, and you still got to. Sometimes it's just a portion they pay depending on what it is.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I used to have a copay.
You could go over there and get like your organ removed for $12.
Yeah.
And that's not even voluntary.
Yeah,
You're just getting it
that
removed.
just happens.
Yeah. It's a
And they
normal
charge
thing.
you for it too. They don't just take the organ; they
Yeah.
charge you.
$12 is a deal, though.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get your organ stolen, $12 is a pretty good deal.
I mean, it'd be cool if I could keep my kidney, but I mean,
You only have you only
you
need
got
one.
the other one, right?
But anyway, yeah. Long story short, he went over there for a doctor's visit, and
Because
the
I had a broken toe.
yeah, broken toe. Doctor gives him a full fucking body scan with his hands,
Yeah.
and then tells him that suggests that the solution might be for him to bathe with his mother.
Yeah, and I was 12.
Needless to say, that was awkward, and they didn't return to that doctor. But
And he spent a lot of time on my dickhead too. It was really weird. That's the most action
did he
I've
donkey
gotten.
lip it?
Yeah, he did.
It might have been a sign that
That's
something was gonna go
The
wrong.
most action I've gotten.
But
This is that old guy stroking my little ding dong. The
yeah.
good thing is I didn't get like a hard on. That would have been awkward.
Oh, that's
Because my mom was there when he was stroking my.
That's
ding
why
dong.
you didn't get the hard on.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
This is a slight deviation from our Mexico plot line here, but when I was in prison, there was this gang that part of their initiation rite
Stroking ding dong.
was stroking ding dongs.
Yeah.
They would get you. I mean, there was other parts of the initiation rite, but part of the initiation was after the jump in and all that shit. They would grab you, hold you down, and stroke your little ding. And if you got erect, they were like, "Oh, you're gay. You can't be in the gang."
Damn, that's gay.
The fuck, man. And here's the fucked up part. Some people naturally, because it's a physical reaction,
Yeah.
they got erect. You know, there's people that get raped that have a physical reaction. They can't help it. It's their body, the chemistry, right? So naturally,
Sometimes you get random little freaking dingaling.
yeah. So sometimes these guys would get erections and they would be like, "Oh, you're gay. You can't be in the gang." And then like 2 days later, they're in the gang. It's like, dude, you just want to get that guy erect.
Damn.
Anyway, whatever. Let's get back to Mexico. Any,
Maybe the doctor was one of those guys.
possibly any Mexico tales you want to share? Maybe.
I can't think of any.
It's horrible because you said one earlier, and I said we'll talk about that later.
What was it?
But let's talk about armadillos. When I was in one of the times I was in Mexico, my grandmother's brother had a bunch of stuffed animals everywhere, right? And it's cool to stare at those when you're a kid. But he had these armadillos that were stuffed so horribly. You know, their pads weren't touching the ground. Like they were just like this. Like the little feet were like this, touching the ground. They were standing on their nails, basically.
Yeah.
But I figured that those nails plus the cool ass smooth tiling would lead to some great armadillo racing. So I'm basically chucking these armadillos down the hallway, and there was a couple of them, so they would race against each other. That was the narrative in my head anyway. And I did this while they were out, so I didn't get caught, right? Except I almost went without a hitch. Except that one time I threw the armadillo so hard, one of them, that it hit the end and the head broke off. So I got in trouble for that. But anyway,
You should have taped it.
I should have, but it would have been like the whole roll.
Yeah, that's what would have been funny. But I had a turtleneck.
Now I kind of want to see that.
My soda was the one, by
yeah.
the way. So this chick, what was she?
She was the guy, my grandmother's brother's wife.
Would occasionally visit
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah, she would
She'd
come
stay
here.
over for like a week or two, maybe.
I don't even understand why, because they clearly didn't get
Yeah,
along
that was
well.
really weird. And she would just kind of silently judge everyone.
Oh man, yeah.
It sucked. It was really uncomfortable. Anyway, one time we went to the Family Dollar, which was kind of like a hub for people for a while when it opened. Then
You
it
gotta keep in
became
mind that we live in a small town, so if Family Dollar opens, that's like the
It's a-
Chicago Mall or some
Yeah.
shit.
So we went there, and she went to buy something, and since she's from Mexico, she had pesos, and she insisted on paying with pesos, and they were like, "No, we're not Mexico. We're not gonna take your worthless cash. It sucks."
An exchange rate alone.
And she was like furious about it and wouldn't let it go. And we're like, "It's a freaking peso. My fart's worth more than that."
Here's the fucked up part. Every time she'd come over, she'd go and exchange money for American money. She had American money.
Yeah,
She just insisted
she
on
just
using
insisted on using the freaking pesos.
Because see, the thing is, if you go to Mexico and you can pay with American money,
Yeah.
they'll accept it because our money's worth so much more than theirs.
They just won't accept pennies because pennies are worthless
Yeah.
everywhere.
Pennies are a no-go, but anything else, they'll accept it. And they'll do their own little exchange over there. But America's America, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna get away with that shit. You
No.
go to an exchange house and do that. And
Well,
then
she had the money.
Yes, she had the money. That's what I'm saying. She had gone to an exchange house. She did it every time. She had American money, but she was insisting on using the pesos.
Freaking pesos pissed me off. Anyway, she didn't get her thing because grandma refused to buy it for her, so that was great.
She was a real strange lady, man. Keep in mind, I was a kid when I went with my grandmother over there. But so the age range was about from our age, like, no, you were already a kid, you were a baby, so it was around like 10 to 15 that I went. And as a kid in a foreign nation with people I don't really know, I don't want to sleep by myself, you know.
Yeah.
So I would sleep with my grandmother, right? And this lady, Ramona, she was like pissed that was even happening. Like, oh, you can't sleep with your grandmother. Not like that, you fools. But anyway, can't sleep with. I'm not 69, my granny. But anyway, fucking. So she insisted I sleep alone in the fucking attic of all places. I'm like, dude, this is like some
horror,
rustic ass Mexico with some like 1920s buildings, and I'm sleeping in a
people macheting themselves outside.
Yeah, machete fights everywhere. People still playing with pogs outside.
Tazos.
But anyway, I fucking go sleep in this attic, right? And she doesn't tell me that there's already somebody sleeping in the attic.
Oh man.
And this is somebody that I've never been introduced to, has apparently been sleeping in this attic the whole time.
Like the Bart, you know, his evil twin that's
Yeah,
up there.
dude.
They feed him fish heads.
I go in there, there's this guy, and I'm like staring at him, and he's like, hey, what's up? And well, in Spanish, mind you, and I'm like, hey. And he's like, you're so-and-so, right? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, I thought you were. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy? Why does he have a preconception of who I may or may not be? Anyway, he's like, so what's up? And I'm like, they told me to sleep here. And he's like, oh, okay. So he put some fucking sheets on the ground, and I kind of like just sit there and wait, hoping that he'll go to sleep first. But he won't ever. Eventually we get to talking though, and it turns out the reason I didn't see this guy is because he used to work in the day, and you know, stay up at night. I mean, and basically the night was his day, basically, because he worked during the day. So and that's where he slept. So I would never really see the guy, and I hadn't up to that point. But he was really this cool dude, man, and he was really one of two. And by what I mean by that, he was he had an identical twin, and I didn't know that. They were identical. I just knew that they were twins. So sometimes if you see a couple of twins, you can tell the difference. But these guys were like fucking identical, right? But anyway, whatever. We ended up getting along pretty well, and he was a Batman fan.
Bat fan?
So I had some of my comics, so he liked that. Anyway, one day he's like, hey, you want to go down?
69?
You want 69? You want to go down to the storeways? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Thinking nothing of it. I'm a kid in Mexico. I should have, though. And we go down to the store, and this is where I find out that in Mexico you just buy whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
You know, so we go into a store, and he gets a cigarette, and they give it to him, and he's like, you want one? And I'm just like, he's kidding, right? He's got to be kidding. I'm an American kid, technically, you know. I'm like, yeah, sure, ha ha ha, in my head. And the fucking store owner just gives me one, and I'm like, oh crap, now I got to pretend that I'm like this cool, manly kid smoking this cigarette. So, barfing 2 barfs later, we're walking down the street, and he tells me that he's going basically to a brothel.
All right.
And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. See what I can get out of this. But I think he saw maybe a trepidation and a fear in me, and he stopped. He pauses, and he goes, I'm going to take you back. And I'm like, damn it!
Haggle.
This could have been it for me here.
Could have been laying pipe down in Mexico.
Laying pipe down in Mexico.
That being said, you probably dodged a really, really crab-filled bullet.
Yeah. And here's another thing about old Mexico as I knew it back then. Even being a young kid, just the fact that I was from America caused a strange, like, aura of allure to be around me. You know what I'm saying? Like I was, like I said, 10 to 15 was the age range that I went over there. And just that fact was like, all of a sudden all the other kids are like around and shit, asking questions and shit. And here's another thing people don't know about Mexico. It's kind of like a mirror of America. More so than, it's gotten better, but it's still pretty bad. In terms of skin color, they kind of do the same thing. They're all Mexican, but a darker Mexican will get treated worse than a lighter skinned Mexican. So, I'm pretty light skinned, especially comparatively. And I noticed that over
Unless
there.
you're white, then you're a gringo.
Yeah, if you're straight up white, then you're just a gringo. And then that's like a 50-50 split.
Wow.
Are you an asshole gringo? In which case, you'll get the shifty-eyed Mexican that you're always dealing with. But if you're a cool-ass, laid-back gringo, then you're like like Flynn, like, you're like homeboy all of a sudden. So you get called a gringo in a bad way, or you get called a gringo in a good way. That's the weird part.
Yeah.
It just depends on who you are. But anyway, yeah, that was a weird thing I noticed down there. And also lots of haunted houses that have like ill repute. Like people don't go near them. People don't want to even venture near the vicinity of them. They're isolated. Grandmother took me to this location where she used to work when she was a maid as a youth. And she referred to it as the House of 100 Doors, which apparently everybody did there too. Because she's literally walking down the street, she's trying to find it. And she asked some guy, some random fool with a knife in his fucking sash, hey, where's the House of 100 Doors? And he's like, oh, it's down this street, down there, or down that way.
And then the camera pans and you hear, woo, it's all spooky and
yeah,
shit.
Scooby's there.
Yeah.
Marmaduke too for some reason. But anyway, yeah, we go to this house, man, and it was all shuttered up. Like, you couldn't even get near it. But it did look spooky. But apparently she used to work there and she used to see some strange activities, including some sort of devil dwarf. But anyway, that's interesting.
I'm sure it wasn't just a midget. Midgets are pretty spooky.
And midgets are pretty spooky. No offense to midgets, but you guys are spooky, dudes. I mean, they cast you as weirdos for some reason,
Vern
right?
Troyer.
Vern Troyer just choked on a fucking wiener that he was cooking or
Yeah,
something. Anyway, Vern Troyer's not Mexican. That's not the point here. But yeah, man. You think of anything else? I'm hoping you did. God, this whole time I'm feeding you something.
I never
here.
went to Mexico that much.
Yeah, you went over the border to hear local.
Yeah, but it was just to the doctor and shit. One time that's how I discovered I was allergic to penicillin.
This
That
is the
became
worst.
one massive hive.
So I do remember that.
So that was a story that happened.
You were so bumpy. Anyway, Mexico's a weird spot.
Yeah,
You can get shot,
yeah,
and then you'll be dropped. And it got to the point where we couldn't go anywhere anymore because, if you recall, a few years back, it literally became the most violent place, especially right over where the border here became one of the most violent locations in the world, rivaling the Middle East,
yeah.
which is fucking insane. It got so bad that Stallone considered making a movie about it,
Yeah.
where he was fighting the cartels. That's how bad it got. And I had a coworker back in those days that used to be a sicario over there,
All right.
but he worked over here, and he was like a super nice guy, really nice cat, dude, real hard worker and shit. It's just he had to do, he'd basically been coerced into being what he had to be, and he had to do what he had to do.
Yeah.
And
I met a dude in the psych ward. It was.
that was the same.
Yeah, it was. His story was pretty bad. They had kept him in a barrel.
Oh, he was the young kid, right?
Yeah, they kept him in a barrel for like months and wouldn't drug him up and shit, and they made him kill a bunch of people and shit.
Yeah.
And again, nicest guy there, but he was obviously dealing with some devils.
Yeah, that's how the cartels got so bad that they started implementing systems to basically brainwash soldiers.
Yeah.
And that would be an example of that. They would just get them young and
Yeah,
basically...
the dude wasn't even 18. I was in the kids ward. He turned 18 while he was there.
Yeah.
And they had to move him to the adults room. But yeah, I was like, man, this dude.
Yeah.
Nicest guy ever again, but it was like, shit.
Yeah, they would just brainwash these kids and basically raise them to be killers, gophers. And the worst part is that they would addict them to something so that they couldn't leave. They'd have usually heroin. They'd have them coming back because
that's what that guy is.
he would be dependent on them, or they would be dependent on them. This guy wasn't one of that generation because he was already in his 30s.
Yeah.
But he was one of the earlier sicarios that were just forced into it because at the threat of harm to their family or whatever. And they had his wife and kid. And the last I heard of it, his brother worked there too, and his brother lived on this side, had naturalized as a citizen on this side, and was trying to get help him get over here. The last I heard of this dude, he got arrested because he was walking down the streets after a shootout with an AK-47 in his hand.
All right.
And if you end up in a Mexican prison, that's unlike any prison in America. That's an entirely different environment. That's survival, really, right there. And so that's the last I heard of this dude, man. And his brother had come and told us that he wasn't going to come back because, reasons. And when I got his brother on his own, he told me what was up. And I was like, damn, that's insanity, man. So we haven't been to Mexico because fuck that shit.
I used to like Mexico, or at least the place we used to go to. I never went into deep Mexico. Never went into Juarez or any of that shit. But I used to like it because everything was cheap. You would go to the pharmacy and they have like chips with tazos in them.
Yeah.
Pogs. You could get yourself a delicious pistachio ice cream.
The best ice cream.
There'd be people begging for money, and the treat for the kids was to give them. Grandma would give me quarters, and I would give it to them, and I was like, "Yeah, I did something cool." Back when I was really easily impressed, me giving a quarter to a bum was like, "Yeah, that was entertaining."
Well, shit, in Mexico, a quarter's a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's the thing.
They wouldn't take pennies though. The bums would be like, "I don't want this shit."
I'm telling you, pennies are fucking useless.
Yeah. But yeah, we haven't been there because literally heads were rolling down the streets.
Yeah, it's gotten bad. The situation is a little bit better now because, the drug plazas are now more in control, but it's still shitty. So anyway, I wish I could go back and visit those old towns. They were pretty neat. A lot of good memories there. But anyway, we've been rambling about Mexico. Have you ever been down a ways? And if you have, did you encounter those Mexicans that are just like white people? Because I did, and they're like straight up Aryans, dude. And I'm not talking about Mennonites. There's a lot of Mennonite colonies down there.
We're talking like Nazis.
I mean, well, Mennonites are Germans, but they're not Nazis. They're just fucking like Amish people, basically.
Oh.
But I will say that's a whole different story. I'll tell you about.
There's Nazis?
No, fucker. I'll tell you about the Mennonites right now. There are these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, super pale people in Mexico. They're Mexicans, but it's probably because they kept the Spanish blood alive. They didn't interbreed with natives or anything like that. So they're like fucking like Aryan looking. You know what I'm saying? Like Ubermensch style.
Like Hitler would be.
But they're like Mexican as fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like their attitudes and shit. It was weird. When I saw them, I was like, oh, look, there's a family visiting from fucking America. Whitest family of all time. Nope, Mexican as fuck. And they owned a candy factory, so that was cool. And they're like Willy Wonka up in that piece. But no, the Mennonites, man, that's actually an interesting story. I actually wrote a plot to a sequel that I want to write to a script that I did actually write, where I want to integrate the Mennonites into it, because the Mennonites are like the Amish people. They're a religious group of people that segregate themselves from modern society and do their own thing, if you will. They even dress like Amish folk and all that shit, do basically the same shit. But the Mennonite situation got bad down there because even though they were an isolated religious community that was generally left alone, when the drug lords came in and started doing their thing, some Mennonites were like, shit, man, you know what, we're losing our game here. Because what the Mennonites used to make their money off of was like making cheeses and anything cow related and shit like that, crops,
milk dogs.
And they would export it to places, and that's how they would keep their community alive. They'd make a living with their hands, basically, literally. But that situation got bad with tariffs, especially in Canada and shit. And the Mennonite community was suffering for it. Along come the drug lords, and they says, yo, Hans, I got a deal for you, and it involves you transporting my drugs to Canada and your cheeses. And the Mennonites took them up on this deal. And once they were in bed with the devil, so to speak, that was it. Mennonites went from be peaceful motherfucking people to having Mennonite enforcers and drug lords, basically. So bad that they even shot off on their own and tried to do their own thing without the drug lords, which led to its own assortment of troubles. But there was like this big Mennonite ring of drug traffickers that got caught that were smuggling drugs all the way to Canada and shit. So that's a fucking thing that happened in Mexico.
Yeah, that's weird.
Anyway.
Only in Mexico.
Only in Mexico
Also
do weird
only in
things
Mexico,
happen.
clowns.
Yeah, Mexico has a clown problem. If you want to know what we're talking about, we made a video about it. I think it's still up, but clowns.
It doesn't matter. No one watches.
No one watches. But anyway, this has been Ahab and Goontake reminiscing about the old Mexico. Hit like, share, subscribe, those notification buttons, and we're out.
Movies, music, story times, all kinds of shit for you. Anything goes inside the night, woke up with corpulent dudes. Movies, music, story times, all kinds of shit for you. Anything goes